I started my game development journey back in 2017 and had only written a few simple projects in Java and Lua. Back then, as a 13-year-old kid, I figured I shouldn't be writing my own game engine, so I had to choose an existing one. I started researching, and I quickly narrowed it down to either Unity or Unreal. I initially gravitated towards Unreal because it seemed more popular and more capable, but when I found out it uses C++, I instantly changed my mind. C++'s syntax just seemed too complicated. When I looked into Unity, I was happy to find that it uses C#, which looks syntactically similar to Java. Unity became my preferred game engine, as I went deeper down the rabbit hole of programming and game development. Now, 6 years later, as I've began working on Augmented, I found myself wondering if Unity is still the right choice for me. For a long time, I really enjoyed using Unity. It allowed me to get into game development. It taught me a lot of important concepts. However, as in every relationship, the honeymoon phase ended and I got frustrated with some parts of Unity. UI. For some reason, Unity sometimes provides multiple packages to solve the same problem. When you want to build UI in Unity, you can choose between Unity UI and UI Toolkit. Unity UI is often confusing and unintuitive. I've used it for multiple years and I never really enjoyed it, but I'd say I eventually got used to it and knew how to navigate the dumpster fire. I've only recently started using UI Toolkit, but I was first intrigued by its premise, building UI in a similar way to websites. It caught my attention because I have solid understanding of web development. I played around with UI Toolkit and ultimately chose it for Augmented, which would later prove to be a giant mistake. Building UI in UI Toolkit is somehow even worse than Unity UI. Creating custom components is way more complicated than it should be. Existing Unity components are insanely hard to style to the point that I sometimes just build custom components to replace default ones. Also, manipulating UI Toolkit through code feels terrible. Styles are annoying to access. Removing all click callbacks from a button requires a workaround, which might have unexpected side effects. Scroll views are awful to use, I don't even want to go into detail. I could probably go on about UI Toolkit for hours, but I'm going to move on to the next point on my list. Input. For input, as with the UI, Unity also presents you with a choice. Input Manager, old, or Input System Package, new. I've extensively used the old system and to me it always felt more like a quick solution for prototyping, rather than a fully featured input system. If you want to support multiple input devices, allow remapping and all of that good stuff, you'll probably end up building your own abstraction to make your life less miserable. The new Input System Package feels a lot nicer to use. It features a graphical user interface to create key maps. It can also generate C# classes, so you can access your custom input events through code, which improves DX. It's not perfect by any means, but it gets the job done and I definitely prefer it to the old system. I'm not trying to aimlessly hate on Unity though. I want to stress that I'm grateful for Unity. I will always remember it positively, even though I don't like the direction it's going currently. I won't talk about the Unity fee in this video, because I think it's been sufficiently discussed on the internet. I think Unity should stop trying to compete with Unreal. Unreal is way too far ahead when it comes to AAA. It feels like Unity is spreading their resources and working on too many features at once, instead of creating a foundation of polished ones. They should focus on making a single UI system that is fun, intuitive and robust. That also goes for the input system. Deprecate the old system and upgrade the new one. I'd considered switching to Godot for Augmented when I started, but I didn't want to learn a new engine at that point. But as I kept working on Augmented in Unity, my frustration grew, and eventually I just put down my headphones and looked at my keyboard for a few minutes. I reflected and I realized that I was only using a fraction of Unity's features, and most of the time I'm working around or sometimes even against the engine. I also realized that when I chose Unity 6 years ago, I was an entirely different programmer. I needed an opinionated game engine that told me how to do everything. Now that I've got experience in a wide range of fields, I often find myself wanting to create custom systems instead of using existing ones to retain full control. As a programmer, I've begun switching out big tools for more lightweight ones. I find that open source tools often end up having more fleshed out features because their users are also the developers. I hope I could give you some insight into my decision. I've been actively porting my game to Godot for about a week, and I really enjoy Godot so far. It took me a day or two to get a feel for Godot and its concepts, but I currently feel pretty comfortable. Porting my game's menu was pretty straightforward. The UI system took a little getting used to, but I'm already way quicker than I was in Unity. When I ported my localization system, I stumbled upon Godot's metadata feature, which I absolutely love. I just add a dictionary containing the localization keys to every UI element that needs translation. Now, whenever the language changes, I just need to traverse the UI tree and check for metadata, and if present, I update the text or tooltip. Metadata is a great feature, and I'm sure I'll use it again in the future. What I also really enjoy is scenes. In my opinion, Godot's multi-scene workflow is far superior to Unity's, as it allows you to combine scenes without code. In Unity, if you want to load multiple scenes, you have to do that through code. Godot's scenes can also be nested, which is extremely handy. When I tried to implement settings, I looked for an equivalent to Unity's player preferences. Player prefs allow you to save key value pairs persistently. They are usually your go-to way to save settings. When I found out that Godot doesn't have built-in player prefs, I was actually glad. I had the opportunity to build my own system, which I already prefer to Unity's. It took me about 15 minutes to research the file access and write 72 lines of code that my player preferences currently consist of. Because Unity's prefs make you cast the variables you load to the correct type, I made my system generic, which allows you to specify the type you're trying to load. When I copied the Tranquil Oasis to Godot, it went really well. Setting up my tile sets wasn't too hard, and painting the map was a breeze too, although tile painting hotkeys didn't work perfectly. Since Augmented uses A-star pathfinding, I need a way to translate the map into a grid. I discovered Godot's custom data layers for tile maps. They allow you to assign data to tiles. The way I solved my problem was by creating an invisible challenge data layer. I added 2 custom data layers to it named blocks path and blocks structures. I made 3 tiles, an empty tile which neither blocks path nor blocks structures, a wall which blocks path and blocks structures, and lastly an enemy wall which only blocks structures. Afterwards I added a new script to my tile map. It iterates the challenge data layer and constructs a game grid based on the custom data layers. In conclusion, I'd say I'm glad I switched to Godot. I keep discovering awesome features. Obviously, I can only speak on my limited experience, but so far I'd recommend you to try out Godot yourself if you haven't already. It really made game development more enjoyable, giving me those fun moments of learning new things. Let me know if you like longer videos like this one. Thanks for watching.